Hello, everybody. So, how was your semester break? Okay, I hope you're having a good semester break and then finish all the things that you should. Okay, so today we will go into chapter 8, which is soil pollutions or soil contaminations. Okay, so before your semester break, you actually learn on chapter 7, which is on air pollutions. And then during the chapter in air pollutions, you do learn about the acid rain. So this is the correlated chapters to the acid rain. Okay. So before we start the class, let me ask you, do you know how the soil pollutions maybe happens? Okay. So at least I want you to have a little bits of ideas. So during the previous chapters, you also learn about the acid rain, then you know when the acid rains go down, where the waters go. So it will go to our soil. Okay, all right. So for this chapter, the course learning outcomes will be ClO2 and ClO3, which is to explain the important elements. So you have to know about the soil and then analyze the current issues that relates to the environment. So you have to know how to analyze or identify which is the soil pollutions or anything. Okay, right. So this is the soil profile. We call it as a soil profile or soil horizon actually. Okay. The place where we stand, usually when you see, you won't identify what is happened at the down there. Okay. So on our earth, others than those you learn in the air pollutions, we have a lots of layer at our atmosphere. We actually have a lots of layer below the place that we standing. Okay, so remember this OAEBCR. Okay, so the first layer is actually an organic layer. We call it as a humus layer. So this humus layer is usually where we stay and then where the grass can grow. And then we have second is the topsoil. Afterward is the place we call it elevations layer where the leachings will occur, which means all those things will be mixed up here. Okay, those from the if you're having some things that can be leached or leakage, then you will having here. And then we have a subsoil, a mixture of sand, silt, and clay, unconsolidated parent materials, which is a loose layer. And then finally, we have a bedrock, which is a solid parent materials. Okay. Usually, if you are from construction student, I'm sure you know about what is piling. So when we conduct piling, is usually we put in our pile, it has to go until the bedrock where it cracked. Then also from here only we can identify how deep is it. So from Malaysia mountainside is usually about, we have a very quite a deep and some is a shallow. So we have roughly about 2 kilometers to 5 kilometers depth until we reach the bedrock. Okay. So this is the detailed explanations for the soil profile. So you can see we have the surface litter, which is the humus, and then topsoil, zone of leaching, subsoil, paramaterial, and bedrock. And then this is the detailed explanation. This chapter is not that long, actually. It's a very short chapters only. Okay, so it's a freshly fallen leaf and organic debris and partially decompose the organic metals. So it helps the topsoil to hold the water and also nutrients that need by the plants. And then the topsoil is something that where the organic matter, which is humus, been biodegradable. So it been changed into topsoil. Topsoil usually the color is black. Okay, when you would like to plant some tree, usually you will need to buy some soil that is black in colors. So that one is the topsoil. Okay, and then zone of leaching is the area through which dissolved or suspended material move downward. And then for subsoil is the unique color and often an accumulations of iron, aluminium, and humic compound, and then clay leach from the layer. This layer usually you will see the color is actually a bit red and brown in color. And then partially is broken down in organic materials. This is for the layer number 5, paramaterials. Finally is the bedrock. So it's a rock layers. So it's impenetrable layer. So usually it's the water once if there is some things that not good coming in, it will pass through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until level 6 it will stop and then will go horizontally. So it might going out to our rivers or to our lake. Okay. And then for the soil, usually we need some gases that to help the soil become a fresh, or we say it as a good soil. So those gases that needed is the first is for the oxygens, which is required for the soil organism for respiratory. Okay, inside the soil usually we have some microorganism or organism, so they also need the oxygens to be survive. Secondly is the nitrogens. Actually, is required by those that need the nitrogens. For those bacteria that need nitrogens, they will need the nitrogens to survive. Okay. Finally, is the carbon dioxide. It's involved in the soil weatherings. Once we have the oxygen, so the carbon dioxide will be going along. Okay. So this is some things that acid rain acidifications. So you can see from here, we say it as a soil acidifications. And then you can see this is the acid rain. What will happen when the acid rains come down beside the trees will die. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 things will happen and cause the soil become acid. Once you have the acid rains go to the soil, so the soil will become acid. So you can see the definitions for the soil acidification is, it mentions that it's a natural process that can either be accelerated by certain plants and human activity or slowed down by careful management practice. And then it may cause by the accumulations of the soluble inorganic and organic acid at a faster rate than they can be neutralized, right? Okay, so that one is the soil acidification. Now we will see the effect. So which is the number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 that mentions here. Okay, so this is the effect. What will happen first? If you see from here, this figure, the root of the tree will die. Secondly, it will go to our ground table. What else? Okay, so damage the plant roots, leaching the soil nutrients. So the nutrients that having in the soil will be break off. Okay, and then we'll release the toxic metal, which is such as lead, mercury, and cadmium. When we have the acid compound or acidity things go into our soil, it will break the atom or the connections. Once it breaks, all those heavy metals might be get off as the chemical reactions. Okay, so and then finally it will kill the essential soil organism. So this is some things figures that look more interesting that you can see. So those heavy metals will make the tree die, also the organism. See, the cell will become abnormal when the root system are damaged. And then also it will reduce the regenerations of the soil facility. And then the leaf nutrients might be leached out. And then even it might be happens because the underground water is there, so all of this may be go into our underground water. So these are the major categories in the soil pollutions. So these are all the types, or we say it as the pollutants that cause the soil pollution. So we have lead, cadmium, mercury, zinc, acidities, and methane gas. Okay, so where they come from? Okay, so first it comes from the sewage sludge or some industrial waste, and then paint. Sometimes after we paint our house or after we paint some things, where we throw it, sometimes we don't dispose it in a good way. So everything we send to our landfill. And then when we send to the landfill, it might be spilled out. So when the thing is spilled out, so it will go to our soil. Okay, mercury, it will use in some pesticide. And then sometimes if you have the old style thermometers, so it has mercury inside. If you break it, what will you do? You will throw into the dustbin, right? So zinc is a common it will have in the soil because zinc can actually, in a small amount, it can help to grow the tree faster. So some soils are natural acidic and the landfill or waste disposal site. So these are those toxic to the humans, right? And then we can see it's toxic to human, toxic to humans, and then restrict the plants grow. So some plants and soil organisms are killed. Okay, right. So others than the soil contaminants are contaminations or soil pollutions other than acid rain, there are also another sources that might cause the soil pollution, which is our landfill. This one is just more to a brief ideas before we go into the waste, solid waste chapters. Okay, before we go deep into the landfill studies. Okay, so from this figure, it's actually been explained to you. Okay, everything that we throw into our dustbin will be taken by the trucks and then sent to the landfill. Okay, so once we reach the landfill, because we throw everything in our waste, is in our dustbin, we didn't separate our waste. Okay, so once it go to the landfills, what will happen when it reach to the landfills? When the trucks unload it into the landfill, so what will happen? All these things, they won't separate it again. So these, all those chemical things such as your batteries, your medicines, pharmacies, paint, or anything, everything's okay. So we will put it inside the waste. So usually in the landfill, it's not the things that on the surface you see. Before we put everything, we need to dig a hole. Okay. So we need to make a hole and then only we put it in and then it's coming up. So the shape is actually a trapezoid shaping. Okay. So when we put everything inside here, if we didn't have a good management, then what will happen? So it will having a leakage. So this is the soil layer. So it will go into the soil and cause the soil pollutions. So it will have infiltrations into soil, infiltrations to the underground waters, infiltrations to our water resources, right? So that's all for soil pollution. This chapter is actually just a short chapter. Is actually I should include it previously together with chapter 7, but I'm so sorry I forget about that. So I separate it now. So this is chapter 8 for the soil pollution. So what you need to remember is the soil pollution is actually happens in two ways. One is during the acid rain happens. Second is from our landfill or our dumping. Okay, all right. So what will happen when the soil are polluted? So when we having a soil pollutions, then it might goes into our river, go to our lake, and then go to our underground water. And then also all our plants, our tree is actually taking the nutrients and waters from the soil layer. So if we didn't protect the soil, so all our plants will die. If all our plants are dies, what will happen to us? We will have not enough of oxygen. So we didn't have the green plants that help us to produce the oxygen. Okay, so thank you for today's lecture. It's just a very short one. So that's all from us. Okay. All right. Thanks everybody. Bye. So if you have any questions, you are free to ask me through WhatsApp, through comments or through chat rooms. Anything's are fine. Okay.